This video I'm going to be comparing the Total Recall franchise to the Dungeons and Dragons franchise. In the case of Total Recall, you have the Paul Verhoeven classic. This is one of the movies he's most well known for, along with RoboCop and Starship Troopers. Then with Dungeons and Dragons, you have a movie that came out back in 2000 that wasn't well received at all. But then you have Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves that came out in the last few years and actually was really well received. I agree with that. It's a fantastic movie. And when it comes to the highest score for each franchise, with Dungeons and Dragons, the new one, Honor Among Thieves, has a 91%. With Total Recall, the Paul Verhoeven classic is an 82%, so D&D wins this round. Then when we look at lowest score, Total Recall wins this one because the 2012 movie has a 31%, which is already bad, but then the 2000s D&D movie only has a 9%. Then when we look at average score, Total Recall is an average of 56, D&D is as an average of 50. Total Recall wins this round. Then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, in the case of Total Recall, you have a gap of 51. With D&D, you have a higher gap of 82 actually. So Total Recall wins this round, meaning that Total Recall's won 3 of the rounds, so it's already going to win this debate regardless of my personal opinion. But let's look at now, which franchise do I prefer? In the case of Total Recall, you have the Paul Verhoeven movie, which is just fantastic. It tells this really engaging story about this guy Douglas Quaid, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who at first is just living a very run-of-the-mill, quaint life with his wife, and then right at the beginning we also hear about stuff going on in Mars, which is important for later. Douglas Quaid goes to this place called Recall because supposedly Recall will be able to give him a better life, that they can mess with his brain, mess with his memories, do that for him. But then Douglas Quaid finds his wife is suddenly attacking him. He doesn't know why. He sees a message from himself, and then he ends up in Mars because there's this place there that the Cohagen Corporation has created. When you get there, you see this is definitely a weird movie because you have a lady with free boobs and these mutants. So it's definitely a very distinctive movie. Plus, there's also a lot of room for interpretation with this movie as well. Like, how much of the movie is actually real? How much of it's fake? Is this guy actually just at Recall headquarters the whole time and he's just dreaming all this? Or is this actually real? Did he actually go to Mars? By the end of the movie, you have the changes that happen at Mars that really affect this building that's there. Arnold Schwarzenegger is really entertaining to watch. Is Schwarzenegger the best actor? No, I think it's fair to say he's not, but he's really fun to watch. I like the visuals here. I like the satire that's present with Total Recall, which is also present with Starship Troopers and RoboCop. I think it's pretty funny that when Starship Troopers came out, critics missed the point thoroughly on every level because they thought the movie was celebrating all the things that it was actually satirizing. In the case of Dungeons and Dragons, I watched Honor Among Thieves for the first time not too long ago. It was, I think, within the past year, if I remember right. I thought, wow, this is a great version of Dungeons and Dragons. The acting is great. The story is really engaging about this group of thieves that are not actually mean-spirited thieves. They actually have honor. They're not just total psychopaths that are going out there hurting people. No, they actually don't want to hurt people. I mean, they still do bad things, but we see they actually have heart to them. You have this guy who lost his wife. He's trying to get her back. That lands him in trouble, and then he ends up connecting with his daughter more as the movie goes on. She at first is really unhappy with him for understandable reasons, but then our group of thieves ends up battling this witch along with this one person that was a part of the group but then turned against them. I mean, the visuals here are great. The movie has emotion to it. So I like the lore that's explored in this world. I haven't seen the 2000s Dungeons and Dragons movie, and it's like, I don't think I want to watch that film. Going back to Total Recall, I actually watched the 2012 remake for the first time literally yesterday, and I was thinking, okay, this right here is absolutely a slick professional production. The visuals here are good. I don't think the movie looks cheap. You look at it and you go, yeah, I see where the money went to. There's good acting here. I think it's fair to say the guy who plays Douglas Quaid, and he's better at acting than Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's not as charismatic or entertaining to watch as Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, the story here is totally fine. It works. That's not really the problem with the movie. But I think at the end of the day, the problem here is that this comes off as the totally bland and generic version of Total Recall. It lacks all the weirdness, the quirkiness, all the things that were distinct about the original Total Recall. Lacks that satire, the weirdness to it, like I talked about just a little bit earlier on in this video. So it's a totally fine movie. I don't think that it's incompetent. It's not like a disaster, but because you have another Total Recall movie, this new one's not as good as the original. It's not as memorable. It just pales in comparison. Now, when it comes to which franchise I prefer more, let's see, I could go with Total Recall just because I've seen both Total Recall movies. I've not seen both D&D movies. I think I could go with Dungeons and Dragons because I thought Honor Among Thieves was so good. I think I'm going to go with Total Recall just because the original is such a distinct thing. I think it's a bit more distinct than D&D, so I think Total Recall is a franchise I would prefer. That'll wrap things up for this video.